Have you tried co-parenting and it isn't working? Today on the Father Show, we're going to talk and look at why co-parenting doesn't always work. And we're going to be with Chandra Dew. So stay tuned. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. Well, welcome to the Father Show. Today, we have professional counselor Chandra Dew, and she is the CEO of Community Care College Counseling of Georgia. Chandra has a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Christian Counseling and a Master's of Arts in Professional Counseling. She began counseling within the church and has been involved in counseling for over 20 years. She is a veteran of the U.S. Army, married with a beautiful blended family. I know, I've seen them, I met them. She started her private practice, community care counseling, back in 2006. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome Miss Chandra Dew. Hey, Chandra, how you doing?
Well, hello, Mike. I'm doing wonderful. And you?
Good. I'm all right. Thank you for joining us today on the show. We really
My
enjoyed
pleasure.
having you.
All right. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about why co-parenting doesn't always work. And we know every parent that is going through a divorce or not together and have a child to take care of should and really should try their very best to co-parenting so that it doesn't affect the child. So what are some of the reasons why you can think that co-parenting doesn't always work?
Well, first of all, what I would like to do is talk a little bit about the two types. Okay.
Okay.
So, obviously, we want the functioning type, and this will answer some of your questions. Well, the two types of co parenting is high functioning and secure relationships between the parents. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have that, your children end up being able to function in a really good way. They become emotionally resilient. They can adapt to things, willing to take healthy risk. And most of all, when they get older, they can have secure, relationships. Whereas if somebody's in a low functioning relationship in co-parenting where the parents can't get along, what happens a lot of times is the children become very anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they have avoidant lifestyle. They have a hard time dealing with people, and also they're prone to addiction
Oh,
due to those emotional wounds that they get. So I just wanted to put that out there. And the most reasons why co-parent doesn't work is because parents are not willing to put their personal feelings aside for their children,
yeah.
and that is the most important focus. And um and you know and then I can just give you a list of things that happens quite often that I hear, in our counseling sessions. So, directing verbal um, um, communication in front of the child, negative communication in front of the child. You don't want to say anything negative. Speaking ill about the other parent when you're not, when the parents are not together, being very inflexible. I know a lot of times, you have this calendar that you might produce, and, this weekend is your weekend and next weekend's the other, or, and being able to be flexible, because sometimes, things do happen, and you want to be flexible, because if there is, the only time you can go one place for the child is that weekend, that the other one has, and then you just need to be flexible so the children will be very happy.
Yeah.
um, Also, just not willing to communicate. There are a lot of couples who cannot communicate. um, that's one of the things that just makes co-parenting very difficult.
So how, since you says, some parents can't communicate,
Hmm.
or do you have any suggestions on how they can overcome that, or ways that they can communicate better so that they can, try to co-parent?
Well, I think the main thing is lack of empathy toward the other person. We all have hardship, and sometimes things do happen, and you need to have empathy toward the other one so that you can work together in a very healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not exposing, your child to conflict. You
Yeah.
have to agree with each other. If there's a conflict, we're not going to allow our child to know this, and we're going
Right.
to set aside a time to talk about it, but no one else should know. Literally, I have parents who have asked the child to spy on the other parent.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, yes, withholding information, important information, going to the doctor, or even like, having a dance recital or playing in the band, and they're, both the child be happy if both parents would be there.
Right.
Um, Scheduling activities. I've known them to schedule activities um, when the other parent's supposed to have them, and not let them go like they should go. You shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
schedule it without talking to the other parent. So those are a lot of things that happens, unfortunately, that causes co-parent to fail.
Yeah, and I know, like I think I told you before, I've gone through this myself, and one of the things that I did to help us communicate is we did it by email, because if we
Yes.
talk in person or over the phone, it always end up being in an argument of some sort. So I just said, you know what, email me, and I will respond to
Yes.
your email.
Yes. And the coolest thing now, they have apps. They have
Mm-hmm.
apps, they have free apps, they have apps where you can pay. And these apps allow you to communicate, but also allow you to be able to schedule without even talking to each other. You
Mm-hmm.
just put on the app, this is a dance recital on this day at this time. And, so you don't even have to communicate for those who really have difficulties communicate. But that's the last thing that you really want to do. It just gives security to the child when the parents are willing to communicate and be respectful toward each other and be cordial toward each
Yeah,
other.
yeah, absolutely. It definitely will work out better, and the more that the two parents get along, the better it is for the child. Would you agree?
Yes, yes. I have a list here of things that you can think about if you're co-parent, but like I said, respecting the other parent, whether they
Mm-hmm.
deserve it or not, you show respect.
Mm-hmm.
Your child will remember that. Willing to make schedule changes if the former partner really needs it. If it's a good reason, do that. Be a resource for your former partner, and allow your former partner to be a resource for you. You're working as a team. Support each other during difficult parenting decisions. Don't put each other down just because you disagree, but try to figure out what's going to be best for your child. Get advice. Get advice. Um, don't don't put each other in a bad position in disagreements. Um, One of the things that I do really love sharing to people to do is find a healthy couple who co-parents. watch them, see how, they, talk to each other and how they deal with it. Just seeing in action helps a lot. So these are, some of the things you can think about, when you're co-parenting.
Yeah, and you can look at other couples and see how they do it, and take it as an example. But you have to be willing to do it, because sometimes you have one side that's willing, and the other side just want to continue to act a fool because
Right,
he
right.
or she is hurt because of the divorce, or maybe because the other person has moved on and faster than they think that they should. But
Yes, yes.
so, and so they don't want to co-parent, and they want to make it as difficult as they possibly can for that other person. And
Right. And
no, go ahead.
yes, and one of the things that, when that happens, that's where counseling can come in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, what we will do is we'll try to work through some of the past hurts, and then so that they can move forward. And sometimes, I mean, I will just have someone just sit and, apologize for what they may have done if they've done it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all it takes. So counseling will help each one, because each one is coming from a whole different, perspective, and counseling will help bring those two perspectives together so that they can actually start talking to, and not be enemies. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
you don't have to be enemies.
Well, that's the
So counseling
last
is
thing you
one way
want.
to do that.
Yeah. Because the last thing you want to be really is enemies, because you are going to seriously affect your child, because you're going to see mom or dad angry, and like you said before, you're going to have one parent asking the child, what is mommy or what is daddy doing, and who are you seeing, and have you been introduced to somebody that mommy or daddy is dating. So they have to keep the kid out of it and really try to focus on making that kid happy.
Yes. And in counseling, a lot of times we'll do boundaries. And so
Mm-hmm.
what they do is they come in and sit down together, and they develop the boundaries together.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they feel secure, and they don't have to know what's going on in the other household, because they have set boundaries that they agree on.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps a lot too.
Okay. Now, how can you tell if a person is really willing to co-parent, or the person is, I don't care what you say, I'm not gonna like or co-parent in a nice way with my former spouse?
Yes. Well, one of the things that I do when couples, I allow them to come in together, and then I see them separate. And one of the things that I try to figure out is, this person serious about working as a team, because I don't want to make things worse. So, and there have been times when someone's not willing to work. And then I will let the other one know, look, this is what you must do, because you can only control yourself. You cannot
Right.
control the other person.
Right.
And you have to understand, your child will see you in action,
Mm-hmm.
and they will remember it. And if you want to be that parent that your child remembers as being respectful toward each other and willing to work things out, you the results of that will be great. And
Right.
sometimes we don't get everything we want immediately, but in the long term, the results will be great. So I always tell people, look, you do what you should do,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what the other person's doing.
And that's a key. You said
Mhm.
it. You can only control yourself. You can't control somebody
Right.
else. And I've told many of kids and parents that you don't really have to talk bad about the other parent, because the kid is going to see it for themselves, and they'll make their own mind up. And that way you stay out of it. You stay looking like the good parent,
Yes.
and you let that kid decide for themselves. And I know one young man, he won't even talk to his mother. And it's nothing that the father said about his mom. It's just the fact that he has seen how his mother act and respond to different things. And so now he doesn't even talk
Mhm.
to the mom at all.
Yes, and there's a lot of times with blending families, what will happen is once the child gets a certain age, sometimes they can choose, and they
Right.
will
Yeah.
choose that happier side of the family,
Yeah.
the one that works together, and so that's why it's so important not to get so caught up in your emotions, but actually think about what's best for the child, because at the end of the day, then you will be doing the right thing, and that child is most likely going to want to be with you or both of you if you both are responding
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah. Now, and you mentioned really being responsible and a parent being uh, needing counseling. So if a parent decides that, hey, you know what, I do have a lot of anger built up inside, who can I talk to, or why should I go to a counselor to help me with this anger?
Yes. Well, one of the things that I do and a lot of other counselors do is we look for underlying problems. And
Hmm.
so anger could be it, anxiety, depression. I get a lot of people who are depressed, and depression is not one of those things that a lot of people when they think of depression is, oh, you can't get out of bed, but there's different types of depression, and there's a depression that you can be working, you can be functioning, but the body is depressed, the thought process is depressed. And so a lot of times once we work through like anger or depression or anxiety, once we work through all those things, then they're much healthier to be a better co-parent.
Hmm.
For
Hmm.
example, anxiety, if you're always worrying what the other person's thinking and doing, and you know that's going to create problems. And
Yeah.
so we help you with your anxiety, you know, or if you're so depressed, you know, that you don't feel like doing things outside of the things you have to do, like work, then your child's not going to be happy if you're just, making sure they got a place to stay and eat. It
Hmm.
needs to be more than that.
Hmm.
Parenting's more than that. So a lot of times we look at the underlying situ conditions of the person, and then we will actually start taking care of that. And sometimes we have to set it aside, take care of that, and then work through the co-parenting.
Yeah.
But we do whatever it takes to help have a healthy relationship between the two.
And sometimes do you offer both parents to come in and talk, and so they can work out their differences?
Well, in co-parenting, normally that's what I try to do, because
Hmm.
it's very hard to counsel when you hear from one perspective. When I hear both of them, that's when I really see the true picture. And that's when I really can start sharing with them what needs to change.
Hmm.
And one of the things you asked me, was, sometimes people come in not change, but literally that's one of the things I will start with. Are you willing to change? If you come in counseling, you have to change, because we're talking
Yeah.
about two separate people coming together, to produce this healthy child, lifestyle.
Hmm. So what do you say to a parent that says, "Nope, I don't want to change. I'm who I am, and I'm not changing"?
Well, what I tell them most of the time is, you know, I want you to look at how it's going to affect your child. And if you really love your child, you'll be able to put your personal feelings aside about your ex partner and focus on your child. And even that, you'll probably have a better chance in a new relationship, in a
Mm.
happier relationship, when you let go of the past and move into the future.
Yeah. One of the things that I always tell parents, especially women, so I'm going to speak for the men right now, but I tell women that try to keep their child away from, their former spouse, that you have to really look at that. And that is your time. When that child is with your former spouse, that's your time where you can get out, go out with the girls, start a dating if you want to date. But it's your time to rebuild your life so that you can have a new life and a better life without your former spouse. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
say that?
But one of the things I tell, this is a father show. I'm going to talk about fathers having the equal rights to their children. It's
Hmm.
so important for their children to see that their father wants to be there for for them in every aspect of the way. And one of the conversations I have with women is their father's time with them is just important as the mothers.
Right.
Um, and yeah, and if you want them healthy, you will allow that to happen.
Hmm. Now, what are some correctional steps that a person can take to help with co-parenting, and if it isn't working?
Yes. Well, I mentioned counseling, and then there's co-parent classes. You can go sometimes even online. You can find co-parent classes. Um, a lot of times, unfortunately, this is when it gets bad, when someone's not allowing the other person to spend time with their child, and you tried everything, and then I do sometimes court ordered. I hate it, but if a child is at risk or the parent is not allowed to see their own child for whatever reason or how they're doing that, allowing that to happen, then you have to fight for your child. Your child has to know that you love them enough to fight for them. And I'm specifically talking about to a lot of fathers because I do. I had mentioned depression. I get a lot of fathers who want their children, want to be around their children, and the other parents not allowing them to. And I tell them, look, you want your child to know how important they are to you, and so sometimes you have to fight even in the courts, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you do I know men we'll just throw up our hands and just say forget it. I'm just gonna go and live my life, and I'm not gonna I love my child, but I'm not gonna be dealing with this woman all the time. So you know what? Uh,
And a
I
lot of times I do get that, and literally they feel hopeless
right.
because they want to be around that child, but they don't want to do the fighting, and so a lot of times they do give in sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, and
But
that is
when
sad.
they get support, though, in
Mm-hmm.
counseling you get that support. We give you information, that you can what you can do, and so that they feel like there's some hope. A lot of times they just lose hope.
Yeah. Now let me ask you: if you are counseling, say the father and how he can co-parent, or you have met with the child and the father saying, you know what, I'm gonna take her back to court because I want visitation with my kids. Can they subpoena you and have you to come in and talk about what you have discovered as while you're talking to the child,
Well,
or what you've
Well,
seen?
Mike, you get into the law because it's there's a lot of laws in counseling, and so
Mm-hmm.
if both parents come to me, then I'm their advocate.
Then
So
you
I
yeah.
don't take sides,
Right.
and so in counseling, we are not to take one side unless the child is in danger. Once the child's in danger, it's all about the child.
Mm-hmm.
And when they come in counseling, it's always all about the child.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're in danger, then we can do that. But if not, if it's just we can't get along, then I can't. But there are times when it's just one parent coming to see me. And
Mm-hmm.
then I've gone to court and I helped this parent, and that child was relieved from that.
Okay.
So yes, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll talk to the child, and children are very innocent. So usually I get better information from them than I do any of them. So I'll talk to the child, and my goal is always to protect the child.
Yeah, and if you, let's say you're talking to the child and the child lets you know that there is something wrong, are you are counselors
We're
Are they
mandated
liable? Oh,
reporters. We're
yeah.
mandated reporters. We
Okay.
have to
So you have to
report,
tell.
yes, if there's some child abuse, um, we have to report it. Yes.
Yeah. Good. 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 Because that should be, and I know schools have to, but and I would think that you would have to, but I want our audience to know that
Hmm.
if
Well, I
that is
know in
the
the state
case.
of Georgia, we have to. We're mandated reporters. Yes.
Yeah, good, good. And I don't know, but I'm like you. I'm not an attorney, but I'm sure that's pretty much everywhere.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Okay, that's good. Um, is it anything in particular that you look for? I know you said abuse. Is that just physical abuse, or is also mental abuse?
Psychological abuse may be much more difficult than physical.
Mm-hmm.
Physical is very easy. The parent, takes pictures and, you know, but it can be done. It just depends, but it's much more difficult. And then we do have sexual abuse, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's uh, I can't even
that's another
imagine.
story.
Yeah,
I,
that's
I see.
another show, another story.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
because that just I don't know how, and a lot of times it's men, but it's not always men
Well,
that.
I can tell you, in my counseling, I have ran into the most wonderful men, great fathers who love their children, and sometimes just don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I help them because, like I said, the mothers are important, but the fathers are important too.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the children need both on their side.
Right. So, what would you tell a father right now that is going through this and he's not able to co-parent with the former spouse because she's just being too difficult?
Well, one of the things is, we go through the steps because, like I said, court order is one of the last things people want to do, and I don't blame them. And then there's lawyer fees, so it gets very
Mm-hmm.
expensive. But a lot of times I'll say, look at yourself. What are you doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And then we will work on some of the things that they're doing wrong. And then when the parent sees changes, the other parent, a lot of times, then their change. So I'll talk to them about making your change. Be the first, be humble. So that's one of the things that I talk to them about.
Anything else you would talk to them about?
Well, the biggest thing is, well, and then if it gets to that point, no matter what they do, then I do talk about getting a lawyer, and because it is important for that child to know you love them and you want to be with them,
Yeah.
and and they're just important. I believe fathers are just important as the mothers.
Well, and I have to need to say, I have to
Yeah.
agree.
I'm sure you will.
So let me ask you, why has your business now? You've been doing this, your community college
Care counseling.
community care counseling since
Yes.
2016, and I know you've really become successful in your business. What will you contribute that to?
Well, I think the biggest thing when someone comes to see me and is that they see that I care. They're
Mm-hmm.
not just another person sitting down there or another number or another dollar bill. Like I really care and I really go out my way to meet the needs that they come into for.
Mm-hmm.
For. So that is something when they first come in, I always say, why are you here? And what do you expect from me? Because as a counselor, I'm going to see things that they need, but I want to make sure that I actually help them in what they come for.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll see something that they don't even recognize.
Okay. All right. So how can our the Father Show audience get in touch with you?
Okay, well, community care counseling at gmail.com, community care counseling Net. You can just, or Google me, community care counseling, and you'll see where my website is. But we would love for you to co-parenting, any other issues. We would love to help.
Well, good, good. I know that's it's. I know there's a lot of men out there that needs the help, and I really hope that they come out and get the help that they need when they need it, because it's really going to affect not just him, but it's going to affect the child or the children as well. So, Chandra, I want to say thank you for being on the show.
You're welcome.
It's always a pleasure talking with you, and it's great to have you on the show. And I've told you before, we got to do this again.
Yes,
And
yes, yes. I have
yeah,
plenty of subjects we can talk about.
so we're gonna get to them too. So
Yes.
thank you. Tell the family I said hello, but don't go anywhere. We'll talk a little bit after the show.
All
So,
righty.
all right. But
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. And if you're or someone you know needs help and needs resources, please send them to the Father Show with MikeThompson.com and click on resources and get the help that you need to make your man a stronger man or make yourself a stronger man. And if you like the show, please subscribe and let everybody else know. If you like what you heard today, click that like button and always share it. So don't keep this good news to yourself. Let everybody else know about it so that they can enjoy it, learn something. Because our goal here is to make you the strongest man that you can be. So thank you for joining us this week. We love having you, and we'll see you next week. So God bless.